Penny, what's up, man? How are you?
Doing well, doing well. How you guys doing?
Good, good. We're so happy that you're tuned in and that you were able to come on to the work. I know you're knee deep in the season, got a game coming up soon. So we'll get straight to it. The first question, our pinnacle question we ask every guest is, when was the first time that you realized that you were Black?
That's a heavy question.
Yeah.
Just thinking about honestly, I really can't remember pinpoint the time where I knew for sure that there was a difference between black and white. But I can take that question a step further because I have a son who's 7 years old, and he's moved around all over the place from when I coached at East Tennessee State in Johnson City, Tennessee, to Illinois State, now back to Nashville. And I can honestly say that knowing that you're black and white and is taught. He really doesn't know. He didn't know. I'm about to tell you a reason why. When he knew he was black, he really didn't know the difference between black and white. He really calls people, like he would call me brown. He would call you light brown. He would call a white person peach. He calls people by their color. He doesn't see no color, and that's the way it should be for everybody. But I would tell you that here recently, education reform is real close to my heart. Here recently, they were when Martin Luther King's birthday just passed, they talked about MLK for the first time, and he brought a worksheet home that said MLK wanted equal rights for blacks and whites on the worksheet, and it shocked me when I read it. Like, I know he wanted equal rights for everybody, but the way it read is that we wanted everybody to be treated equally, and we wanted the blacks and the whites to be done right. But really, we just wanted equal rights for blacks. And that's being taught to our children, at an early age. And as soon as Black history starts, they start with slavery. And so my son, the first time he's ever taught about the color of his skin is slave, and not what happened before we became slaves. So there's a large miseducation that goes on, and I Chloe, not to be long-winded, I'm sorry, but the touching part about it is these kids are learning this way. They learning this stuff even in 2020, and even though it's subliminal. Now, credit to my son's school, they took the worksheet out, but what's of their teaching. But what's troubling is that worksheet is all across the world being taught to all of our kids. So that's the scariest part about this thing that we're growing up in right now. Social injustice is a front page of everybody's mind right now. But at the end of the day, the only way we're going to change is we got to keep on calling it out every chance we get.
That's a fact. That's a fact. Well, he's lucky to have a parent who can look at that and realize the dynamics, because not everybody has that either. But I want to get a little more about your background, because, at a certain age, you start to realize those dynamics yourself. So like, when was that for you, and how did it develop over time?
I grew up in the basketball world. I'm a coach's son. And so the first time I saw the different sides of the streets and the way different people get treated differently is when you start traveling with my dad's high school team to play the private schools. And you start saying, damn, this is nice compared to what we got, So I think that was the first experience of like, there's another side, there's another world that you can live in. And, I think that's when I first started kind of noticing it. Now, personally, I grew up obviously in basketball. So when you're in athletics, you're able to, it's different. You don't feel that black and white or feel like you separated. You all just trying to compete for the same thing. And I went to majority white elementary schools, and I went to majority black middle schools and high schools. So I'm one of the lucky ones that kind of always saw both sides of it. And I ended up going to a PWI in Belmont University, which is a predominantly white school. And then now I'm coaching at HBCU. So I've been one of those guys that's been lucky to kind of see it all and hear everybody's kind of their story. So I guess I'm just kind of one of the blessed people to see that.
No, that's super real, Penny. And I think what hits for me is when you talk about when you travel, right, for basketball. So whether that be in high school and even college, you see all the different facilities, you get in the locker room and you're like, dang, they're over here living like this. And so you do start to see those disparities so young, and it's great. Well, I don't want to say it's great, but that you can see that through sport, because there are a lot of people that are in the dark when it comes to that. And I know you did mention that you went to a PWI, Belmont. What was that experience like for you?
It was a great experience for me personally, because like I said, I have been around so many different, religions and races and genders. And I've been around so many different people, and I'm a coach's son. So I'm able to kind of move in kind of different weather. But when I went to Belmont, it wasn't a culture shock, but it was different being, when you're in fourth grade and you're the only black kid in the class, or if it's three of y'all in there, you don't really like think about it too much. You're just having fun with everybody. Like I said, my son doesn't even know, what racism is. He doesn't know what it is yet. But when you get in college and you're the only only black guy in class, and it's so funny that it's Black History Month right now. I can distinctly remember in Black History Month, we started talking about Jack Johnson, the famous boxer. Y'all know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And I remember that, we watched a documentary on it, and then as soon as the documentary goes off, the teacher says, "Well, Brian, how do you feel about it?" And like everybody in class, like, like a movie.
Yeah.
I was like, so it's little moments like that you look back and say there was some uncomfortable moments, you kind of say, but I also took it as a badge of honor with my teammates. I always gave them the real. I took a lot of my teammates to their first black high school game, their first black church. They got a chance to experience stuff like that. So I always was excited to try to educate my teammates and educate people around me about, how it is to live in our world.
Yeah, I saw that you said it changed your life, which, I mean, that's what college is supposed to do. But I can definitely resonate with what some of your stories that you were talking about. I went to Michigan, and I had a lot of those experiences. And even in high school, like people like, "Oh, Black history trivia, Brandon, what's the answer?" You know what I mean? Like that was always the case. But I want to talk about your journey, from Belmont, and it looks like you could hoop a bit back in the day, to now becoming the coach, and what brought you to TSU.
Well, it was an interesting journey, man, to go to Belmont. And, now they're a powerhouse in mid-major basketball. But when I got there, we were kind of starting that trend. And my senior year, we went to the first NCAA tournament, and I played for Rick Byrd, a legendary coach. And to see that program where they are now, it's a good feeling. It feels good to know that I had a hand in helping that program become what it is today. And then just taking all those experiences that I've had from high school, playing under my, I didn't play under my dad, but learning under my father, and then playing under Rick Byrd at Belmont and other places I've been, has gave me the opportunity to be, well-rounded, to be the head coach at such an early age at Tennessee State.
And Penny, so even when you were coming up though, did you consider any HBCUs at the time? Like, was there anyone that was on your radar that you thought about going to, but instead there was some reason why you chose Belmont instead?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's a long answer, but I'm gonna give you the quick one. All my family went to HBCUs. My mom, my sister, my aunties, my cousins, everybody, my grandmother, everybody went to Tennessee State. I grew up on Tennessee State's campus, HBCU. So if you know anything about the homecomings and the fish fries and the parades, I lived all of that. And then when it was time for me to choose a school, it was no brainer for me. I wanted to go to Tennessee State. They recruited me. And I ended up committing to Tennessee State. And a long story short, right when it was time for me to assign, the head coach at the time wanted me to kind of basically just be on the team and walk on, since I was an in-state kid. He kind of basically took the scholarship away from me and told me that he had another guy he wanted to get, but he still wanted me on the team. You know what I mean? So shout out to my mom, Mrs. Collins. She came in and said, "I'm sorry, my son's got other scholarship offers. He ain't taking no walk-on spot." We love TSU. Now, my mom was a TSU through and through. She had AKA. My grandma was an AKA. So y'all know what I'm talking about. My family is the family that doesn't go to the fish fry. We work in the fish fry. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's my family. We in it. So she, as much as she, and I said that to say, she loved TSU. My family loves TSU, the HBCU experience. I love it. I wanted to go bad. I committed. And the coach at the time just didn't, he wanted to go a different direction, which I totally understand it. Basketball is a business. You got to do what's best for your program. And he wanted me on the team still, but I just decided that it would make more sense for me and my family to get a full scholarship to somewhere. And Belmont was there with an opportunity, and I took it.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Yeah.
So I got to tell you, when you talk about the homecoming, so I was in middle school, right? And we had this program at our church. I went to the oldest Black church in Grand Rapids. My uncle was the pastor, so I had that surrounding. And one of the church, one of the older gentlemen, I think he was a deacon or something. He was a Kappa, and he brought all of the young Black men down to the homecoming, Tennessee State. So that was my first time going to homecoming. I'm in middle school, and it was lit. Like, I remember being in the gym. They had everybody strolling. They had I remember the tubas. The tubas were fire. So I would love for you to talk a little bit more about Tennessee State, the history, like what it brings. We saw that, you know, even Wilma Rudolph, like some of the legacy and everything else.
Yeah, man, it's a rich tradition. Not only in athletics, but in all facets of the institution. It's got so many important people that came here. The most popular person, obviously, is Oprah. You know, she's every time I bring her name up, some people don't even know, you know, that she went to HBCU or attended Tennessee State. But you know, you look at from the NFL standpoint, we produce the most NFL players out of all HBCUs. And then when you look at the NBA, we produce the most NBA players out of all HBCUs. And then we got a legendary track program, Tiger Bells, which Wilma Rudolph. As popular as all these NBA players and NFL players are, nobody's more popular than Wilma Rudolph and what she did at the Olympics. You know, there's a famous story of around the 70s or 80s, right when she kind of got finished. The track team was doing something over in China, and everybody came up to her asking, where was Wilma? And all the way in China, like Wilma Rudolph was massive, you know, what she did. She was the Michael Jordan of track, basically. And she came from right here at TSU. And then just moving right along, we've had #1 draft picks. We've had guys go on to win NBA championships and be NBA All-Stars from TSU. And the biggest thing that we always tell kids is that they don't know the history of not just Tennessee State, but the HBCUs. It's always been kind of looked at as like, oh, I can just go there if I want to. That's my second, third option, or my fallback plan. But back in the day when they weren't allowing us to play at some of these Power 5 schools, that's where all the top talent went. You know, I think about my favorite running back, Walter Payton. When I played Tecmo Bowl, I got the Bears and I'm running that thing with Payton if I wasn't running with Bo Jackson. And Walter Payton went to Jackson State. You know, a lot of people don't know there's so much rich tradition here. And it's really time for it to come back. And I believe that I'm really starting to see a trend. But the biggest thing for me, Brandon and Chloe, is that the education that these kids know the history of these programs and these institutions, and know that a lot of these programs, institutions, you guys are saying you want to be pros, they're going to these Power 5 schools that haven't produced more pros than some of these HBCUs. So it's just good that they know what's really out there, that they have options, and that they can bring the power back to wherever they want to go.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I want to ask you about, Penny, because you do talk about, you know, all it takes is one, and really just transforming a program overnight by getting some of these top stars. How do you say to them, or what goes into really telling them that they make the school and that the school doesn't necessarily make them?
Well, the biggest thing, Chloe, is that they got to realize it's bigger than just them. It's if you really care about, and I'm not making this about black and white because it's not about that, but we're talking about HBCUs, which directly affect the African American community. And if the African American community, if the programs are thriving and the colleges are thriving, the communities around the universities thrive as well. Businesses start booming. You start creating more jobs for the community that's around the campus. You know, you go. I take Belmont for example. Take University of Kentucky, whatever school you want to. Any program that's thriving, look at the businesses that are around them and the jobs that they're creating. Look at the merchandise that's being sold. Look at everything that comes with that. And that athlete or those athletes, they change that. They have the power to change that. If Zion Williamson decided to go to Hampton, Hampton would have been on ESPN every game. That eliminates them from saying, well, Hampton don't play on TV. Well, they will if Zion's playing. You know, ESPN will call them right away. Overtime, you guys will be on the phone with them right away. You know, you guys can control the narrative. And there's an opportunity for, and it doesn't have to be the #1 player in the country. It doesn't have to be that. It just has to be a group of young men that want to say, you know what, your son's history book, Coach Penny, where they was talking about Dr. Martin Luther King and they weren't saying his story right. I want to be in chapter 8. And they say we were the guys that changed college basketball and decided to bring the power back. I want to be in those history books. I want to be a young man that people can remember us by. I don't want to be the 80th NBA player from one of these programs. I want to be the first one to take a program to the HBCU to the Final Four. I want to be the first. I want to make history. And you got to have some young men that got some special people around them, some parents, some AAU coaches, some uncles and nieces, aunties that are all saying the same thing. For that to happen, it's going to have to be a collective group. You know, it's you know, I keep on going back to this worksheet, this assignment. But I don't think y'all really understand. People don't really understand how powerful that is. That's being taught everywhere. So do you think it's just going to be one conversation or two people that can help change this? It's going to, for us to be able to change it, it's not going to be just Black people. Everybody's going to have to come together and make people understand that equality is not written on a worksheet, subliminally saying that everybody was happy back then. We just want it equal for everybody. No, that's not true. For us to really create change, everybody has to do what we're doing right now, have these uncomfortable conversations at times and be real and make people understand that the power is really in your hands.
Yeah, it's definitely an institutional change. It's not just a one conversation change, no doubt. And we've seen that momentum, right? Like we've seen, with Howard and Makur Maker, and we've seen Sequoia Allman, and obviously what Dion's doing at Jackson State. So how do you sustain this? Like, what do you need to do? What does the program need to do to sustain this momentum or capture this moment versus, 2 years from now, it's not in the memory anymore? Like, how do you keep this going?
Yeah, I think it's going to take total buy-in from a community of people. A region of people to say, hey, we're gonna make sure this gets done. And not only make sure it gets done financially, they're taken care of too, they're stable. And then when these athletes get into these campuses, that they feel comfortable and they don't look around and say, well, we don't have, oh yeah, we do, we have everything we need. And it shouldn't be judged off wins and losses, and I'm not here to, it doesn't, like my boy Jay-Z said on that, on that, on that song, he said, we can go 0 for 82 and I can look at this like it's gravy. I mean, it don't matter. Kentucky's struggling right now too. Ain't nobody talking about they ain't going to Kentucky next year. So it's not about winning and losing. And every one and done kid, if Maker goes to, he's at Howard right now, okay? And shouts out to Howard. I'm glad they got him. But if Maker doesn't go one and done, it's not a failure. It doesn't mean the next kid shouldn't try. There's a bunch of kids that go Power Fives that are quote unquote one and dones, and they don't go. They still keep going these Power Fives. So it shouldn't be judged. We shouldn't be putting unfair pressure on them saying, oh, if he goes to Tennessee State, if he ain't one and done, they should never go no more. Or they gotta win a championship. Oh, he gotta do this. No, he don't. He gotta go there, get his education, be taught, go eat that fish food, go eat that fish fry, enjoy that homecoming, be a kid. And then on Thursday night, when we play a conference game, hoop, and at the end of the season, if you end up being Ja Morant and go first round, good for you. You got to come back for your second year. You getting another year of college and getting taught academics and sharpening your mind. It's not all about you have to go be this pro or you got to win championships or you got to win 30 plus games. Go and play for a program that's going to take that young boy to a man and teach him some values so that if he becomes a husband or a father one day, he's going to be ready and sharpened for life. And then in the midst of us doing that, he's going to become a pro if it's meant to be, whether he's at Duke or Tennessee State.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more in that sense, Penny. And also, too, to your point, it's like you want to develop these boys into young men, which is really important. And I think it's also really important that they receive that type of teaching from another Black man as well. And when you think about one and done situations, why do you think some of these kids think that they can't go one and done if they go to an HBCU?
Well, it's being taught to them, just like that worksheet. Man, that worksheet pissed me off, as y'all can tell. It's being taught. It's being taught. And this is no knock on any coaches from, different genders, races, because they're great coaches, every race, white, Black, Asian, it doesn't matter. There are great coaches everywhere. But to your point, there are so many people that have imprinted in people's minds that there's only one way to skin a cat, and that's not true. You can do it any kind of way you want to do it, and that's the whole beauty of this thing. Be the first. Your organization be the first. I'll tell you like this. Y'all seen the movie Glory Road?
Yep.
That was a moment in college basketball history. We started 5 African-American men in the national championship game, and they beat Kentucky, who had Pat Riley. You know what I'm saying? And then you fast forward a little bit forward to a lot forward to the Fab Five in Michigan. They didn't win a national championship, but they were groundbreaking. They were trendsetters. With those baggy shorts and those black Nike socks. I don't know if you remember this, but you remember UNLV when they had Larry Johnson and Stacey Augman. Larry Johnson had go to, them boys swagged up. That was a moment in college basketball history. And then you think about the one and dones with Calipari did when he had, he had the Derrick Roses and he comes with the John Walls and Boogie Cousins and those guys, Anthony Davis. People remember that moment. Like that was a great team. But there have been plenty of teams that have won championships or have been successful. But what's going to be the next group that you're going to say, Howard, do y'all remember when this happened? Do y'all remember when those young men decided to do this? Well, it's time for some new history to be made. What's it going to be? Who's going to do it? This is the time right now. It's no better time than some young men to come together and say, you know what? Let's all go here and let's make our mark in history. The same way those other groups I just talked about did.
I love that. I'm ready to suit up right now. You got me hyped. All right. Well, I've read a little bit, but I've heard about some of your goals. You kind of mentioned some of them here. I mean, cultural impact clearly is one. Yeah. What are your short-term goals for the program? What are your long-term goals?
We want to be a well-respected program in Tennessee State. We want young men that come from good backgrounds that want to have a chance to make history, come here, not just to, like I said, not just to win championships and go to pro, but they want to come here and have their life sharpened. We don't just teach basketball. We do life skills with our young men, PowerPoint presentations, talking about how to change a tire, how to tie your tie. I mean, there's so much things we work on with our young men. But in the long term, obviously, we want to be a team that makes history and makes a run in the NCAA tournament, contend for a national championship. One of the programs that I've always admired is Wichita State, and I saw what they did, making a run to the Final Four. And that, to me, that program is another program that you think about Fred VanVleet and Ron Baker, you're like, man, remember what they did? Like, why, if Wichita State can do it, why can't Tennessee State do it? It's no difference. It's just going to take a bunch of young men that are probably got a chip on their shoulder, that has something to prove, to all come together for one common goal.
Got to be committed. I love that. And then even speaking on these kind of long-term goals, what do you think about Chris Paul's HBCU con for student athletes who aspire to play professionally and having something like that?
Yeah, I'm loving what Chris Paul is doing, and we need more of that. We need more people bringing awareness to it. What he's doing is brilliant. I love it. He has to continue to do it, and he needs people to help. One of the biggest guys that's helping us is Rob Covington, who played at Tennessee State. He's doing an unbelievable job for us. He just committed to building us a brand new practice facility. It's not many mid-major teams in the country that have their own practice facility, but we're going to have the Robert Covington Pavilion coming soon. And guys like Rob and Chris Paul, what they're doing is priceless. I'm speechless. I can't even say thank you enough to the awareness that they're bringing to HBCUs.
I love that. Shout out to Rob. He's obviously been putting on for HBCUs for a long time as well. So definitely want to give him his flowers while we can. So I have one more question for you. This was a quote that I found. You said that, when you're talking to young athletes, you're not selling blackness, you're selling us. That statement was interesting to me. So what does that mean to you?
I'm digging in my brain. And when I said that, I remember saying that in the interview, and boy, you done some research, boy. That was like a
we own it.
All right, so I'm explaining. That's a great question. So at the time, there were, George Floyd was going on, and a lot of the interviews I was taking, people were basically saying, here's your window, here's your chance. The world's looking. Are you gonna sell the blackness? And are you gonna sell the pain, the struggle right now? This is why they should be coming to play for you. And I didn't want to sell that. I didn't want to get rich off tragedy, something that we deal with daily. George Floyd dying brought let me rephrase that. George Floyd being murdered for 8 minutes struck people's hearts across the world. And it's not like a told you so type of deal, but it was one of those things like, now y'all feel us. We've been singing this song. Dr. King been preaching this. Malcolm X has been preaching this. So I'm not going to sell the fact that we Black and lift every voice can sing. We've been singing that song. We want to sell our legacy and who we really are, our families, our tradition, our love, not just for Black people, for everybody, for mankind. This is not just some opportunity for HBCUs to let's get rich off all the bad stuff that's going on in the world. It's an opportunity for us to show everybody that we're just like you. I'm no different than John Calipari, Jim Boeheim, or any other big time Caucasian coach. We're the same. If your heart is hurting for what happened, our heart has been hurting. So that was kind of where I was coming from with that comment of, yeah, we Black, but it's because that's us. That's who we are. You know, I looked at a lot of coaches around the country putting statements out, blanket statements, and putting their graphic on a statement about what was going on for social injustice. And me personally, I just decided that, I was asked, you want to put a statement out? And I didn't, because what people were dealing with for a week, we've been dealing with it our whole lives. So that's kind of where I'm at with all of that. And the main, and I don't want to drop the mic or nothing, but the main thing is that, and it happened. We all know it happened. It died down. People kind of stopped talking about it for a little while. And I'm glad conversations like this are being sparked right now in February, because it's still an issue. You know, or have we gotten better? Are people more aware? Absolutely. But one blanket statement, one opportunity, and one article is not going to change it. It has to be continuous conversation. So I really appreciate y'all.
Thank you. That was great.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you coming on, telling the story. You know, we hope we can get this out there. So this was great.
No doubt.
Thanks again for tuning into The Work. Just like Coach Penny said, HBCUs have a rich history of academic excellence, athletic excellence, and more. So do your homework, check out the history, and don't forget to like and subscribe and follow us on all your favorite platforms.
New flavors is lit. New flavors is lit. Sorry, let me stop playing. Y'all need to quit playing too. We just brought back the sold out OT Play hoodies with a brand new flavor for y'all. Ooh, that's so special. Go check that out in the shop right now. And as always, check out more fire videos over here, and don't forget to subscribe. Y'all know the deal, it's OT.